Hey there, it's Dave, and in this video we're going to focus on a high-level overview of some of the reasons that we've come to understand why people don't want to run lab testing to find out what's going on in their digestive system, and more specifically why people don't want to run stool testing and have themselves poo in a box and send it to the lab so that they can figure out what's actually going on, right? Because it's not the most pleasant of experiences to provide a stool sample, and so that's the first point I want to make. If you want to figure out what's going on in your digestive system, and a stool test is the best way to do that, or one of the best ways in what I would say is probably most cases, a lot of cases anyway. It's not very nice to do a stool test, right? But if you want to get to figure out what's going on in there, you have to get over that mental block of providing a stool sample. You've got to say, is it easier for me to provide a stool sample and more pleasant for me to provide a stool sample than to have these symptoms either at the level that they're at right now for the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, or to even have those symptoms worsen over time and potentially cause more serious and severe problems, which means that at some point you're going to need to do a stool test anyway, because the doctor's going to make you do one, right? So there's kind of a mental block, and I understand it. I don't like doing stool tests myself. It wasn't like the top of the things on my list of must-dos. It wasn't like at the top of my bucket list to actually have a stool test when I was feeling crappy all the way back in 2007. In the next video, I'm actually going to share with you the benefits of me conducting that very first stool test, and then the second one I did. So we've got to get over the mental block of pooing in a box. It's a horrible thing to do. It's not pleasant, but you've got to get it done and figure out what's going on inside here so that you can fix it. And if you don't do that, if you have H. pylori or some of these other nasty critters that live in your digestive system, you can end up with a serious problem later on in life if it's not properly dealt with. So it's a small price to pay to poo in a box. Now, the next reason, and by the way, these are all reasons that people have shared with us as reasons why they hesitate and procrastinate in terms of doing these tests. The next one is an assumption that the doctors and the medical system will be able to fix this problem for me. So the problem with that is that the medical system is set up in a pretty basic way to assess the digestive system in a certain manner using certain types of tests. And in most cases, the underlying reason for the symptoms is not investigated in the medical system. So I'm all for MRI scans, CT scans, PET scans, ultrasounds, barium enemas, colonoscopies, gastroscopies, and all the fancy technology that's used to find ulcers and inflammatory bowel disorders and tumours and blockages and things like that. Sometimes people do need those tests, and even if you have them and they come back negative, at least it shows you that there's nothing really severe going on. But in most cases where people have a bunch of really mysterious digestive symptoms, those tests do not find the underlying reason for the symptoms, because the reasons for the symptoms are usually lifestyle-based, food-based, stress-based, and oftentimes due to imbalances in the bad and good bugs in the digestive system, as I talk about on many videos. So it's kind of a fantasy, if you like, that the doctors and the medical system are going to resolve these types of symptoms that many people are walking around with, because the fact is they're not. They're just going to send you home with drugs to try and control the symptoms instead of finding the underlying cause. Now, I hear you, what you say then is, well, I can get a stool test from a doctor. Yes, you can get a stool test from your doctor, but are you aware of the level of technology that's being used to evaluate that stool sample? Do they even look for all the things that need to be looked for? Because maybe they don't even acknowledge that some of the things that we know cause problems in sort of our natural healthcare paradigm, maybe the doctor doesn't even look for those, or maybe the lab technicians don't even look for those. So there's a very big grey area. When you have a stool test from the doctor, there's a small number of things that they're going to look for, about 12 to 14 different bad bugs things like Salmonella and Clostridium difficile, certain parasites. There's maybe 3 or 4 parasites that they look for. Maybe they'll look for H. pylori, but there's actually a wide range of organisms outside of those common 12 to 14 that we know can cause problems that they do not look for. And even when they do look for them, in very rare cases, the technology is often not strong enough to be able to find them in every case. So there's a lot of controversy around that, and we'll do some different videos to expand on that argument in a little bit more detail. The next reason is trust. Why the hell should you trust people like me with your health? Why doesn't the medical system do everything it can for me to get me well? Why should I spend money on testing my digestive system? What if that money is wasted? What if the technology is fraudulent and it doesn't work at all? Well, I can tell you from experience that having worked with several thousand people over the last 10 years or so, the lab testing we use is certainly not 100% perfect, but it's bloody good, right? It finds some of the real reasons why you're not feeling well. Might not find all of them because some of them may not actually even be in the digestive system, but it's going to help you uncover some of the things that the doctors are not going to look for. So from a trust perspective, how can I get you to trust me or another practitioner who you might be thinking of working with? Well, through education. And part of these video series that I'm releasing at the moment is all about educating you as to why these tests are beneficial. The next reason why people don't run testing is obviously cost. Cost is a huge one, and I acknowledge 100% that some people just do not have enough money in the bank to afford these tests. I'm going to do a whole series of videos on the link between finances and health, but just for now, if you do have enough money, cost can still be an issue because you think, am I going to be wasting my money? And on an even deeper level, you might be thinking, well, why should I even have to spend money on my health? I'd rather spend money on going out at the weekend, or a new sofa, or a new TV, or a new car, or a new home, or whatever that might be. But really, spending money on your health is an investment because it kind of assures and ensures your longevity moving forwards, right? And so when we're working with people, we're not just teaching them how to get rid of their symptoms right now, we're teaching them all the principles that would be wise to follow for the rest of their lives so that they can live long and healthy lives thereafter as well. And so this whole idea of cost and value, it's up to me to communicate the value of these tests to you. And in the next video, what I'm going to do is just, again, share with you my story of how valuable a stool test was in my life before we dig into these in a little bit more detail. And then finally, we've got this whole idea of fear. And fear can manifest in many different ways. First of all, fear of not trusting. That's one. Fear of spending money and wasting the money. That's another. By the way, we always offer a money-back guarantee on the stool test that we run. If they don't find anything, then we refund the money. Hopefully that breaks down a barrier for people. But then the fear of other things as well. Some people are genuinely fearful of finding out that there's something in the digestive system that they'd rather not know about and that they are scared to find out is there. And that's perfectly okay. But what I would say is, no matter what's found in the stool test, it can be dealt with. So I think burying your head in the sand and being fearful of what that test might show is probably going to hold you back and possibly be dangerous for your future level of wellness. Another fear is that some people think, well, if I find A, B, C and X, Y, Z in the stool test, I'm actually going to have to give up doing things I really enjoy doing in life. And that may or may not be the case. But then you've got to go in there and say, well, how valuable, how important is it for me to have optimal health and live a long and healthy life versus having to give up a couple of foods or going out with my friends for a while and things like that? Because usually the payoff of sacrificing those things is a lot smaller than the benefits that you get from actually figuring this out and getting yourself well again. And then finally, what will other people think? So if I go on a health drive and I take responsibility for my health and I want to change my diet, change my lifestyle, run these tests, if I start to tell people about this, are they going to take the mickey out of me? You know, are they going to tease me? Things like that. These are also real fears that people actually have. I had to go through this in my own life because I went on the health drive and not many of my friends did the same thing, and I ended up kind of drifting away to a degree from many of them because I didn't want to carry on living the same lifestyle. So I know how that actually feels. And then also, we've also had a lot of conversations with people where they want to take the action steps to run stool testing and other testing to figure out what's going on, but other members of the household might not want them to. So the husband may not want the wife to spend the money on a stool test because maybe the husband doesn't even believe that the wife's symptoms are for real. Maybe they think it's all in the head. These kinds of things are also really important as well. And so far too detailed to get into in depth, but we'll expand and unpack all of these principles in future videos. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope it's helped to break down some of the barriers in some respects and some of the reasons why in your own mind you might be thinking, oh, I don't want to do this test. I don't want to figure out what's going on. And in the next videos, as I say, we're going to look at these areas in a little bit more detail so that we can just break those barriers down a little bit further. And if I was to finish with one point, I would say that I've probably experienced all of these at some point in my own health journey. So I know how it feels. It's not like I'm saying, oh, you should just get over all of this and you should run this test. It's not like that at all. Me and Jack and everybody else who works within our framework, we've all had some of this going on at some time. So it's perfectly normal. So in the next video, I'm just quickly going to talk about how the stool testing helped me in my life. And then we're going to go into videos that unpack some of these issues in a little bit more detail. So I hope you've enjoyed it and I look forward to talking with you soon again.